In the previous video, we have created two routes, get root to get all to-dos and post root to add a new to-do. As you can see, using the get to-do request, we get all added to-dos. And using the create to-do request, we add a new to-do. In this lesson, you will see how to add routes for updating a to-do and for deleting a to-do. So let's add a new route for updating a to-do. Whenever you're doing an update operation, you need to use the patch HTTP request method instead of post. Using patch method, you can update a single field or multiple fields in a particular document. If you see the list of to-dos, for updating to-do, I want to update a single document instead of updating all the documents. And as each document has a unique _ID property, we can use that ID to identify the document to update. Express.js allows us to provide a root parameter while defining the root using colon and the placeholder name we want to use. So this ID name is placeholder, so you can even call it name instead of ID, but as we will be using the ID, I will stick with name ID. So whenever I will make an update request to /API/todos, we will be adding ID of the document we want to update at the end. So let's add a new request in Postman to update. I will duplicate the previous request. And I will rename it to update to-do. Now the request method will be patch, and I will add an ID at the end of the URL. The ID we're passing is the ID of the first to-do with name first to-do. Now, let's add the controller code to handle this request. So, I will copy-paste the add to-do code. And I will rename the function to update to-do. Let me remove all the code from try block. Now, I can export the update to-do function and import it in the to-do route. Whenever we send the update request, the ID that we're passing in the URL will be accessible through the request.perms object. So for now, we can log the perms object to the console. Also, while sending the update request, we will also be sending the title and status with the updated values, which we can access through request.body object, so we will log that also. And I will send the OK status using response.send method. Let's open the console now. And in the update to-do request, I will send title to update. For the title, I will say, first to-do updated. And when I send the request, you can see, it's 200 OK status, and if I see the console, you can see ID value which is request.perms. And this is request.body object printed. So now we have the required details. Let's add code to update the to-do. To update data from the database, we can use the model name which is to-do and find by ID and update method. There is also find one and update method which also can be used. For now, we will use find by ID and update method. And as a first parameter, we can pass the ID that we're getting. And for the second parameter, we need to give the fields and their updated values in an object. For example, title and status. But that object we're already getting in request.body object, so we can directly pass it. And as this method also returns a promise, we will store that data in updated to-do variable and we will use a wait keyword. Now, we can send back that updated to-do. If we check the database, you can see we have first to-do with status of not started. Now, I will send the request again to update that document. As you can see, we're sending the first to-do updated title, but still we're seeing the previous title in the response. If I send the get to-dos request, you can see the to-do is actually updated, but in the response we're getting old values. Even in the database, the title is updated for that document, but in the response, I'm getting the old title only. This is because, by default, findById and update method does not return the updated document back. If we want to get that updated document back, we can add a third parameter in an object and say new:_true. Now, with this option added, we will get that updated data immediately. So if I change the title and say updated again, and I will also pass status this time with value of completed. And if I send the request, you can see we're getting the updated details which we have passed. If I send the get todo's request again, you can see it's updated in the database also. So this is how you can update a particular document in the collection. As we have seen earlier, there is also find_one and update method. So I will say const updated to-do equals await to-do, find_one and update. And for the first parameter, we need to pass an object and the fields we need to find the document by. In our case, it's _ID with the value will be from request.params.id. And other parameters will be same as before, so I will copy the same. Now, let's send the update request again with different title. You can see it's updated successfully. So you can use either of these two methods to update a document. I will use the first one as it's more explicit for our request. So that's how you can update a particular document in a collection. Now, we will create a route for deleting a particular document from a collection. So we will still provide the ID to delete, but the request method will be delete instead of patch. Now, I will create a controller code. I will name it delete to do. It will be async function. Let's add try catch. And we will say const deleted to do equal to await to do dot find by ID and delete. And this method will just need the ID to delete, which is in request.params.id. Now, we can send back the deleted to do. And we will export this method and import it into do root. Now, we can add a new request in Postman to test the delete functionality. I will take one of the ID to delete the document. Now, I can send the delete request. As you can see, we're correctly getting the deleted to-do back. If I send the get todo's request again, you can see that to-do is actually deleted, as now we have only one to-do. If we check the database, you can see there is only one to-do now. Now, let's delete the remaining to-do also. I will take that ID and use it in delete request. Now, the remaining one to do is also deleted. As you can see, we get empty array back. But there is one issue. We're not having any to-dos in the database for now, but if I send the delete request again, you can see we still get 200 OK status, which is not correct. So before deleting the document, we need to check if that ID exists or not. So here, we can add code to check if the ID exists or not. We can use findById method to find that out. If the ID exists, it will return that document, otherwise null will be returned. So, if the document does not exist, we will return back 400 status. To indicate client error, as user has provided an invalid ID while making the request. And we can call the send method to send it back. Now, if I send the delete request again, you can see we're getting 400 bad request error, which is correct. But there is one thing you need to understand. If I log the error to the console, and if I send the request again, you will see error in the console. The error is saying, cannot set headers after they are sent. We're getting this error because just saying response.send does not mean that the function will stop executing the next code. And the Node.js will continue to execute the next lines of code from the function, where we're again sending the response using response.send method. So anytime we want to send response back immediately, make sure to add a return keyword before response.send so the function will stop executing next lines of code. You can even add return keyword here also, but as this is the last line of code in that function, adding return is not required. Now, let me clear the console again and restart the app. If I send the delete request again, you will see that there is no error in the console now. You can send back specific error message also while sending the response back. Like, please enter valid to-do ID. If I send the delete request again, you will see that error in response. This same condition we can add while updating also. So if the to-do ID passed to update does not exist, we will send back the same error message. So as you can see, we don't have any to-dos right now in the database. But if I send the update request, we're getting 200 OK status back. So when the findById and update method does not get the provided ID in the database, it returns null. So if I log the updated to-do value, you will be able to see that null result. So if I send the update request again, it's 200 OK status, but in console, we're getting null displayed, so update is not successful because there is no matching to-do ID in the database. But by default response.send method sends out 200 OK status, which we don't want. So we can copy the same code from delete handler function and paste it in the update method. We don't need to make any changes here. And we can delete the console logs. If I send the update request again, you can see we're getting 400 bad request error with the proper error message. So that's it about this lesson. If you found this video useful, do like it and share it with others.